Thanks for stopping by for Monster Monday, the best way to start your week. Though this week's fare is more of a menace than a monster, as I try to expand on my roster of NPC-styled enemies. For this particular one, lace up your sandals, take up your arms, and step into the Colosseum to face the Retiarius. Folks, I am trying to play this YouTube game a bit, so if you could like and subscribe, I'd certainly appreciate it. I was surprised to find that there wasn't already a Gladiator NPC in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, especially since there's two different flavors of the Gladiator archetype. So, I decided to take the matter into my own hands and make such a mauler myself. Gladiators are interesting, as they actually have classes of their own, which are determined by what armor and weapons they were afforded. The Retiarius was specifically styled after fishermen, barely armored and equipped with a net and trident, as well as a dagger should he lose the other two. They weren't well regarded, but they strike such an image that, for many people, this is one of the first things that their minds conjure when they hear the word Gladiator. Still, we have to keep in mind that the Retiarius is a bit lower on the totem pole, which leads to me creating it as a 5th level creature. It has the humanoid trait, but I avoided using any more specific traits and left that up to you, so that you can have it fit your story or setting. For example, the Azarketi could be a supremely thematic ancestry pick if you're sticking with the classic Pathfinder world. The Retiarius is described as a lightly armored and agile fighter, but its weapons and fighting style need a bit more strength, at least with the mechanics in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This leads to it using a high strength modifier, but I did still want to lean into the agile nature of the Retiarius, and thus gave it a moderate dexterity as well. This moderate bonus will also be applied to its charisma, since the Retiarius is meant to be a performer, a gladiator that can put on a show for the people. This leaves it with a low constitution and wisdom, as it isn't as pertinent to its general design. Again, there's going to be a focus on evading attacks rather than tanking them. My original design had the Retiarius using a low perception, but my test subjects over on the Monster Monday suggested to go for a moderate value, and lean into the idea of more martially minded characters, such as fighters, barbarians, and rangers, who all start as experts in perception. The most important skills of the Retiarius are its athletics, for using maneuvers with its net, and performance, since it is a gladiator. When in the ring, the Retiarius might try to use its moderate intimidation to throw enemies off their game, while its moderate acrobatics plays into the whole idea of it being a more agile and nimble fighter. It also has a very low survival, just because the role is based on a fisherman, and this is obviously what he needs to catch his fish. As previously established, the Retiarius is a lightly armored individual, who relies on his agility to carry him through the fights. To this end, it is designed with a high armor class, while its HP is only moderate, meaning that it has a focus on evading attacks rather than just trying to survive the blows. Its dexterity shines through in its high reflex save, and given that this is a battle-hardened warrior, it also uses a moderate fortitude. That leaves us with a low will save, as it is a more physically inclined character, with a more meager wisdom. Now, the main weapon of the Retiarius is of course its trident, though all of its strikes use the same moderate attack bonus. This might seem a little odd for a dedicated warrior, but part of the idea of this is that the Retiarius is on the lower rung as far as gladiators go. The other idea is that the Retiarius actually has a lot in its kit to lower the armor of enemies, and make them more vulnerable. Its trident can be used in melee or be thrown, though it doesn't have a backup trident, and either way it keeps moderate damage. Its dagger, which has the agile trait, can also be thrown, and deals low damage. Keep in mind that the dagger is meant as a backup, a break in case of emergency situation, as most iterations of this NPC will be wielding its classic trident alongside its net. And on that topic, let's start talking about some of the abilities for the Retiarius. First things first, central to the Retiarius' entire kit is Net Mastery. This is a passive enabling effect, as it allows the Retiarius to use its net for several maneuvers, even while both of its hands are occupied. Furthermore, it grants a tiny item bonus on such attempts with a net, just to encourage and hopefully facilitate it doing so. The final aspect of this feature is that it allows the Retiarius to take the action to refold its net with a single hand, just so that it doesn't have to put down its trident when it wants to do so. My test subject suggested the inclusion of the Showman passive ability, which lets this glad-handed gladiator gain a way to roll performance for initiative, and use that higher bonus. Something that might get used a bit more regularly though is that it also lets the Retiarius feint with performance instead of deception, which is important because the Retiarius also has sneak attack. With the main strategy of the real-life Retiarius being to tangle up others and then stab away, this felt like an appropriate ability, and gives an average of +3 damage on affected strikes, which will bump most of them up by 1 step. So that trident will usually hit at about high damage, and its dagger, if it uses it, will be at moderate damage. And these are all pretty simple static effects, which might feel a little boring. Fortunately, this fearsome fighter features a few more fun options. Spear Dance is based on a fighter feat of the same name, and is a basic little ability that will let the Retiarius demonstrate its maneuverability and agility, stepping and striking about the battlefield. If you're looking for something a bit more unique, there's also Tangling Strike. This is another single action ability that offers some very nice action economy, and a little bit of cheating on the multiple attack penalty. It needs a folded net to use it, but opens with a grapple or trip using said net. If that maneuver is successful, it can immediately follow it up with a trident strike at the same multiple attack penalty as the grapple or trip. And if the Retiarius instead happens to miss that grapple or trip, it can just refold its net as part of this single action. So either way you go about it, this is an action saver, so it is a great opening move. And to keep it from being spammed, it has the Flourish trait, which is perhaps most important to stop the Retiarius that missed on its first attempt from doing so again. Now that covers our basic array of actions, but this maritime motifed martial mime does come with a few reactions. The first of those is the commonplace but ever useful reactive strike, giving the Retiarius the opportunity to strike down enemies that try to outmaneuver it. It does also have a slightly more unique effect, though one that is much harder to pull off in the form of Celebrate Victory. I'm liable to make more gladiators, and this, along with showmen, are likely to be regular features among them. This is based on the Retiarius demonstrating his ability to the crowd, whether they're actually there or not, before either becoming emboldened by this, the temporary hit points, or pointing out his next target, the Demoralize. Originally, this effect only triggered on the critical success of a strike or athletics attack action, but my test subject suggested going for reducing an enemy to 0 as well, both in reference to your next, and because that is the victory you're looking for in the arena. I hope I've earned your thumb for the design of this drift dredging death dealer. This fighting fisherman feuds with foes in fabricated fracases, fouling up fanatics and forcing them to fumble with a fantastic flourish. I kind of like the idea of making some more NPCs styled after classic warriors. So, at the very least, here's the start of that idea, and let me know what you think of it. Obviously, the Retiarius is probably best used in an arena combat, but you could have one featured as hired muscle or something of the sort for a gang of bandits. Or even have a gang boss who is a former gladiator, that likes to enact his punishments and demonstrate his might before his assembled gang. That's this Menace made. Let me know what you think of him and what other monsters, or NPCs, you'd like to see in a comment. If you want to see the other monsters I've made, or the D&D versions of this Menace, check out the Monster Monday blog, which is linked in the description below, along with the Discord and Twitter. Thanks for watching, and have a monstrous Monday.